RogueGoddess, and welcome to Conan Exiles. As always, any music you might hear in this broadcast does not belong to me. Today we're going to be learning how to build on Conan Exiles. For those of you who don't know, foundations can actually cause a lot of lag for a server, so they are really discouraged from being used. However, that doesn't mean that you can't use them to start your building. So, you can place down a foundation block, and then you can place fence foundations on them. If you notice the fence foundation, you can place it at the top of the block, or it will allow you to place it a little bit down from the top of the block. And in the online game now, you can actually return materials to your inventory. So you don't need to make a lot of foundations because they do take up a lot of resources. You can make, say, probably 10, and that would be enough for you, unless you just want to use one and pick it up repeatedly. So whenever you make a tiered foundation like this right here, you can actually walk on the foundation and not have to worry about making it, like, you don't have to worry about climbing on it. The foundation itself, rather the fence foundation itself, you can't place them side by side, unfortunately. But if you were going to use this for, say, a road of some sort, you can choose which fence foundation that it goes with. So if you notice, the green part will let you choose which foundation you want to use. And then you can just proceed to make it however you want. So, like that right there, you can go around, and you will see the foundation a little bit popping out, but it's not that big of a deal. They don't look any different, really. And if you wanted to change that badly, you can just pick up the foundation and then put that there, make that go there, and then you have this little thing to work with. Whenever you're wanting to make a circular building, and remember, you don't always have to use foundations whenever you're wanting to put down a fence foundation. It will place however you want to put it. And in order to raise it and lower it, whenever you're in normal standing mode, you've just chosen to put it down. You click triangle, and then you can raise it with R2 and lower it with L2. And then you can just put it down wherever you want, however you want. But if you're wanting to make a circle, rather a circular building, the first thing that I would recommend doing is starting with your triangle wedge pieces, and then creating this right here. And like I said, you can pick these up in the online game. It doesn't dismantle them anymore. I mean, you can choose to dismantle them, but you also have the option to pick them up. So you can really do this with like two different foundation blocks, and just continually pick them up and put them down all the way around. You don't have to strictly keep yourself to it. But then you would place all of your blocks around here, and it would just make a little round building. And then you go back in and you dismantle all the wedges. Or pick them up, whichever it is that you want to do. And then you can go around with these, because it doesn't work as well. Whoops. It doesn't work as well whenever you're just using the wedge pieces. But you would more or less go around doing this all the way through, and placing your foundations down. remember that you do have to keep it stable, so if you're wanting a roof on this, you either have to keep it low, like limit how big you make your circle, or you have to add rooms inside, or just do something to keep your building stabilized, keep it from falling too badly. And then you just go in and, like I said, dismantle all of the foundation blocks. And do try to keep in mind that any foundation blocks you might use or leave behind or whatever, it doesn't just affect you. It affects the whole server. So whenever, say, somebody puts down a foundation in 03, well, not 03, but we'll say 05. Somebody puts a foundation down there, it still affects you all the way up to, like, you know, A12 or whatever. So it's a server-wide thing because you're running on the same data from everywhere. So do try to be mindful of what you use and how you use it, and make sure that you always pick up your foundations after you've laid down your groundwork. So then you would do this, and usually what I do, instead of adding foundations down here, the fence foundations down there, I will put pillars underneath all of the square pieces, and that kind of helps give your building a little bit more stability. It makes it so that you don't have to worry so much whenever a purge comes, because 9 times out of 10 purges are going to attack the baseline here, and then whenever they've attacked that, you still have this single piece down here holding up your building, and you can go back and you can fix it and make it better. You know, and the triangle pieces for stability are a little bit wonky for whatever reason. I'm not sure why, they just are. Although if you do want to use the triangle pieces instead, what I recommend is going these two that are opposite one another, and then that kind of holds up the rest of the pieces there. So that is the circular building, and you can continue to increase it outwards. So basically what you do is, where there's a square bit, you put triangles, and where there's a triangle bit, you put squares. And you can pretty much go with this indefinitely. You can make a pretty good sized building off of this alone. And a cool new feature that they added was that little arrow right there. It lets you see where your item is going to face. So it doesn't really matter as much for pieces that look identical, look the same. So kind of like this, where, you know, the underside is completely the same, the upper side is completely the same. So, like, it doesn't matter how you have it faced or what you do with it, it just is there. So that is the circular building style. So if you're wanting to make a really big building, and I mean a huge building, usually what I do is I will make a grid. So we're going to go with this right here, and always try to gauge where it is that you're wanting it to be exactly, because, you know, if you have OCD like I do, or you're playing with someone who has OCD, more or less, they're gonna want to make sure that, you know, it's in the exact center, or it's gonna bug them. The exact center of wherever they're choosing to build, or it's gonna bug them. So, usually, what I do, whenever I'm making a mega build, well, it's not really a mega build, but a big build, is I will make a grid. My grid is usually comprised of a 3x3. So whenever you do this, you go in and you make sure that your pillar is underneath the center block. And you can do this however big you want. What that does is, during purges, like I said, they'll knock down this, but usually if you have something in the center, it will keep it stable, and it won't be as likely to get ruined. So, you don't have to do a 3x3 grid. It's just, this is extremely stable, and a lot of the times whenever I'm building, I have trouble, if I have to relocate, I have trouble tearing down my building because I do it so well. But like I said, you don't have to do a 3x3. So usually, if I am building somewhere and I want it to match up with what is there, which obviously that's a bad example over there, so I'm going to find a different spot. Okay, we'll say right here. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, I know. So if I'm wanting to build in a spot and I don't know how long I need it to be, I will put my middle marker and then I will fill out the spaces in between the two different locations. So sometimes you do have to layer it like that, and sometimes that is annoying, but it's something that is just part of the game. So more so, if you don't want to start in the exact middle of where your stuff is, you can start with the highest point, and that'll kind of keep you from having to worry about that, provided that the rest is flat. So you just do it along here, and we'll say that that right there is where I want to end it, and say that this over here is where I want to end it too. So usually I'll count 1, 2, 3 out, and then I'll go over to the other side and do, you know, I'm supposed to be in ghost mode. Anyways. And I usually move a little bit on top of stuff. Well, usually they leave you alone. But 1, 2, 3. Whoa. I'm just doing this for right now. Admin panel. I want to be a ghost. Thank you. Okay. Ghost mode is kind of weird. Ooh, I've never really played with it before. But anyways. So, then you would build it out where you want it. Oh, it's gonna let me do stuff while I'm in ghost mode. That's creepy. And it still has them attacking me while I'm in ghost mode. That's crazy. Maybe not ghost, maybe invisible. Okay. We'll go with invisible. See how that works. Alright. So then, you know, you just pull this however far out you want it, and don't bother counting it, and then 1, 2, 3, run back over here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, well, that actually wound up being perfect. Wow. But the big thing is that you create a grid and work off of that, because if you don't, the rest of your things are not going to be stable. You need a grid in order to keep your things from falling. Because I know that a foundation seems really stable, but even whenever you're working with foundations, you have to keep in mind that this foundation counts as a complete and total support. It's not, it's not as though you're putting a fence foundation down, which only really offers partial support. So you have to make up for what you're losing with the foundations themselves. But even though you're adding more down, it's still not as laggy, oddly enough. And you don't have to worry about it as badly. So that is all of the advice that I have concerning builds. If you have any other questions or comments or ideas or things that you want to see, just let me know and I'll try to accommodate. For now, thank you so very much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Or don't, I don't really care. But thank you and have a wonderful day.